What's up, Coach Emma here, and welcome back to the Fit Habit Life podcast, where we cut through the noise, talk real health and fitness, sustainable fat loss, and habits that actually work. And today I have a super special guest on the podcast, Coach Justin Jones. He's the head coach and founder of Assemble Performance. We were in a kind of business coaching group together, and we actually got to hang out at the Real Coaches Summit in April, which was awesome. And he's a great coach, so I'm really happy to have him on.
Good to be here. The Real Coaches Summit was fun. It was good to see you.
It was really fun. It was cool to meet in person.
It feels like it wasn't that long ago, but we're already in, what is it, August, end of August now?
I know. It's been, I guess, like four months, which is
crazy. Time
flies, really.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited to have you on. You have a cool story. So I figured I'd just give you the floor and tell your story, and then we'd kind of go from there.
Yeah, sounds good. I tend to be a little long-winded, so I'll keep it short, and if you want to dive in anywhere, we can.
Sounds good.
I started sports when I was 6, playing basketball, so I've been active most of my life. Grew up in a small town in Ohio, so I actually graduated high school with 10 people. So
wow.
Very small. Yeah. But I played sports, basketball, track, cross country throughout elementary school. Then I started track in cross country, middle school, high school. And then the whole time, a small town, what do? You work construction, maybe you go to college, or you join the military, right? So I was actually going to go to Ohio State University. I lived in Ohio for exercise science, very interested in it, but decided to join the Navy from the years of like 2013-ish to 2018. I was kind of just training for sports in general for the military. Met a lot of people online. I've actually had some of them on my podcast that are coaches now. It's kind of cool to come up together like that.
That's awesome.
But I obviously played around with my own programming and then made programs for other people online, helped people out. Just kind of, I didn't have any intention of coaching. I was just enjoying training and program writing and things like that, especially for the tactical population, because it felt very purposeful at the time, right? Even now I work with a good amount of tactical athletes, and
that's awesome.
Your fitness can be like a life or death situation sometimes. So had a lot of fun with that. Anyways, I ended up joining the military. I went to BUDS, which is Navy SEAL selection.
Oh, wow.
And that's a long story, but basically got a concussion, didn't work out, and got re-rated to a cybersecurity job. I was going to say the acronym, but nobody probably even knows it, the military and their acronyms. But I got a cybersecurity job after that in the Navy. Did that until I got out. Realized I did not like it that much. I was good at it just because I had the work ethic, but it was very impersonal, right? You're just staring at a computer screen, at a black screen with white letters at a terminal all day, right? So I started coaching officially before I got out of the Navy because I decided this is not for me. I actually went to a life coach at the time because I was like, hey, I'm planning on getting out. I have my bachelor's. I got my bachelor's in cybersecurity while I was in. I'll have my GI Bill. I don't know what I want to do with my life. This is not fulfilling to me at all. I'm good at it. It pays well, but I don't like it. I want to have more of an impact, which goes back to joining the Navy in the first place, right? And anyways, I ended up getting my CPT, so my personal trainer cert from NASM, and then I got my CSCS from the NSCA and started coaching officially, taking money for it while I was still in the Navy. So I did a good amount of free and cheap coaching, and then obviously have scaled from there since I've got out of the Navy. And that brings us here. I work with a good range of people. I don't really do physique sports. I know a lot of people do. I do mostly performance. So tactical, endurance athletes, strength athletes, hybrid is my thing. So a lot of people doing both. And I said I was going to try to be quick. That took a little bit, but
no, that was good. And yeah, I'm long-winded too. And with these interview-ish style podcasts, I want to give the other coaches the floor. So yeah, you can go as deep dive as you want. And yeah, that's awesome. A lot of coaches do bodybuilding. I don't either. I don't like it because it's not healthy. And there's to extremes. But anyway, that's awesome. I did not know that you were in the Navy. I mean, I remember that you were in some type of military area, But so that's how you got into cybersecurity. It wasn't like you went to college for that and then moved over.
Yeah, I couldn't even tell you what a hard drive was before I joined the Navy. I'm gonna be completely honest. It was just the only
Really?
job that I had an option for afterwards that didn't go on ships and got paid well afterwards and didn't get treated like trash, basically. Uh, so I was
That's
like, I'm gonna do
crazy.
that because I'll get to be home and see my wife and not be gone for 9 months at a time on a ship.
That's crazy. That's awesome. Yeah, that's also how we connected because we're both in the software world.
Yep,
So are you still doing that part-time too?
I am. Yep. Still
Okay.
doing that remote work from home just while I build the coaching business. And I mean, it's good. It's not too difficult, once you get to a certain level. It's just,
Yep.
a lot of meetings and a lot of like lack of purpose and in person, like face to face purpose. So nothing against it at all. I mean, it's a good field to be in. I just, really value the impact that I can have on people and the positive impact just on the world in general, right? Because if I make one person's life better and then they make two people's lives better and then those two people make two people's lives better, it's exponentially kind of branches out.
Yeah, totally agree. It's coding's fun and like there's cool stuff that you can do with it, but you don't really get that same impact feeling because I mean you might be impacting a lot of people with the software you build, but you never meet them or see how it helps them.
Yeah, I like the experience though because it does help me be a better coach. I see a lot of coaches struggle with new technologies when it comes to delivering. Like I'm working on a group program right now, maybe soft plug there, I guess, I don't know, but I'm working on a group program right now and delivery, I'm going to use Google Sheets and I want to have everybody have a good copy of that, but Google Drive doesn't let you copy like one master folder into a ton of subfolders. I would have no idea how to do that if I didn't know how to set up with the Google Drive API and write a script to do it. So I think it just, technology is a tool, and the background that we have definitely helps when it comes to delivering high quality service because you can customize to that next level since you know how to like write a Python script or something with an API.
Yep, and it helps tremendously in improving like because we're solopreneurs, so we have to do all the things. So if you can automate anything, it helps tremendously because then you can focus more on that relationship and like with that individual client instead of having to focus on how do you deliver these other aspects of the program.
Yeah, or even like I guess last point for me on this, but even the delivery, right? So one of my clients had a heart rate test we were doing. He was training for a marathon, so we were doing a lactate heart rate test, it's called. And his numbers seemed off to me. And so I wanted to know if he was using his wrist-based heart rate or a chest monitor because the accuracy is going to be different. I could have texted him, but I didn't really feel like bothering him. So I downloaded the GPX file and opened it up and like found in the JSON where it had the device. Somebody else could have done that, but most non-tech people would probably look at that and be like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. So even just little things like that, being able to just verify like pacing or things like that when it comes to all the fitness tech nowadays, I think it's just super helpful.
Yeah, definitely. And I, when you're in the thing, you don't realize like, so I have a lot of coaching friends, and for me, like using a CRM or like automating things, I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is easy, whatever. But a lot of other people like really struggle with it, and so it just helps. So that's cool that you have that background.
It was a blessing in disguise for sure with the way the world works now, because I don't know where I would have been without. I couldn't even tell you like technically what a hard drive was beforehand. So
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy. And okay, so you transitioned. So I guess, how long have you been coaching then, since you were still in the military when you started?
Yeah, my business has been around since 2022. Before I officially started it, I brought on a few people for free and just, a few friends that I knew weren't going to like be weird and sue me for some random thing if I didn't have an LLC. So I coached them. And then I say, I've been coaching or writing training plans for a while. Cause even back in like the 2015 timeframe, like I was writing training programs for people. Before I joined the Navy, I was one of the few people in charge of like our pre-joining like group of people that were training. So we would write 3 workouts a week for those people.
Oh, wow.
So it kind of did start before I even really knew I was doing the thing, right?
That's awesome. So like 10 years.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That's cool.
It's crazy.
That's great. Gives you a lot of experience and hands-on knowledge to help your clients.
Totally.
So mostly performance, do you help with fat loss and like lifestyle clients as well?
Yeah, it's normally like as a parallel goal to some performance goal. And that's not anything, I don't have an issue with bodybuilding as a goal. I know a lot of coaches that do. Obviously, if it's taken to the extreme and not, and you don't take care of health as well, then it can become a problem. It's just not, I never went through a crazy fat loss transition. I've never been super passionate about that world, so I just don't work in that world. Um, I actually was pretty overweight before I went to middle school, and then I had my appendix ruptured and I was in the hospital for a month and lost a ton of weight.
Wow.
So I actually was really underweight. I was 130 pounds, still this height. I was shot up to this height in middle school. Now I'm 210. So wow. I actually had the opposite, where throughout middle school and high school I ran, and I was just trying to put weight back on. So I could eat literally anything because I ran as well. And by the time I graduated high school, like, I was pretty lean just because I literally did the opposite of that. So for me to help somebody with fat loss as a singular goal, even if I have the like technical know-how, I've never lived that to that effect. So normally body composition for me is working with people to optimize their performance. I have done that, right, myself. As life happens, I've kind of fluctuated weight-wise. So people, even if it's just like, hey, I want to be able to run a 5K again. I haven't ran a 5K since I played some sport in high school or college, right? I would consider those a little bit more lifestyle, right? They just want to kind of get back to their feeling athletic, right? Because they haven't done that in a long time. So jumping, running, lifting, things like that. And body recomp is part of that. So macros, things like that, or visual tracking if people aren't comfortable with that. And then there's obviously the behavior component as well, in the relationship, which is a huge rabbit hole that we could go down. And then I have all the way up to, I have police officers, people going to special forces selection courses. Wow. I have people that run ultra marathons and do powerlifting meets, Ironmans, things like that. So it's kind of the whole spectrum of performance goals.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I've noticed, like, when clients do have some type of performance goal, they tend to be more compliant. Just because it's like you're working towards something else as well. So, maybe you do want to change your body composition, but always focusing on that and like the scale or waist measurements and those metrics, that can be demoralizing if it's pretty constant. But if you're working towards like a performance goal, like in parallel, then it helps tremendously because there's other things you can focus on. So like, even if the scale isn't moving, but your strength is increasing, we're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I do have one client right now. I was kind of hesitant actually to start with him because his primary goal was body composition. And I normally don't take those people, but I had a good relationship with him outside already. I'd known him for a while. I'd kind of helped him with some things, and he really liked my approach to the behavior and the relationship and things like that. And so he asked if we could start, and I kind of was just upfront, like, hey, this isn't my like bread and butter, but we can if you want. And so we started. We did like I was like, let's just try this out for 2-3 months, see how it goes, and then like we can continue on or not if it's not working or if it is. And anyways, the weight and the body fat has been coming off pretty well, but on top of that, the strength and his we do very short jogs because he's still overweight, but we do like mostly walks with some jog little like portions, like 10-20 seconds here and there. And he used to play football in high school, and he's just talking about how good it feels to lift heavy again, to move. And then the mindset wins too. I've been trying to make sure that I bring those up for him because he initially wouldn't have done that. So things like, hey, this week was super crazy. I got to the gym, but it was really hectic. Whereas 6 months before that, the gym would have been like the first thing that got cut. So yeah, having some secondary goal and ability to celebrate those little wins is so important.
It really is. So I want to dig into the mindset a little bit because most people come to me for body composition change. And even though like we coach kind of two different populations, the mindset is the same that you have. I mean, for the most part, it's like behavior change mindset. Like that's the key to both of these different kind of lanes of fitness. So how do you why did that particular client, why did he gravitate towards you and your approach?
He's actually my barber, so I'd been seeing him like monthly for a while, and so he'd just been asking me questions, and I'd been answering as I would, right? And he liked just the way that I approach things, and it's something that I didn't really notice until he's called it out a few times. He's like, you have some kind of, he calls it a gift. I don't know what it is, and I'm not trying to say like everybody's just different, right? And so, but he was like, you know what to say, the exact right thing to say when I need it. You know when to push, you know when to pull back, and unfortunately, I don't really have a process for that. I just do what feels right in the moment. So I think that's why the relationship is so huge, right? Him and I, we definitely hit it off. The clients that I have, we really hit it off. Some people just, our personalities just wouldn't jive for whatever reason. But I think that's why it's so huge, because that gives me that ability to have that intuition of like, hey, based on these last 3 weeks that we've had, I know he's having a hard time right now. Does he need some like accountability, or does he need some compassion? And then I'm able to do that. And it's really just, again, based on how I feel. I don't have a process of like, if these 3 things are hit, then I do Y, right? It's just kind of intuition based.
Okay, that makes sense. And yeah, the relationship is so important with coaching clients. Because if you don't have that relationship, it's harder for them to trust you. And it's harder for them to believe, like, because with a lot of people that I work with, like body image or, relationship to food or making changes is very difficult. And so there's already like that barrier. So if they trust you and they trust that you have their best interest at heart because they know you and you have that relationship, then it makes it a lot easier, and they tend to get way better results, whether that be performance or fat loss.
Yeah, and it helps the training and everything else as well to know what's going on outside. As you'll be aware, right, the stress that you have outside of life does impact training. And especially for the performance athletes, there are nagging little injuries from the past or little pains. And a stressful day at work can make a previous injury hurt worse, even though there's been no change in physical damage. And so it's important to understand, even from the performance side, what is this person going on outside of training? And I just love learning about their lives too. Like I was just doing a client check-in an hour or so ago, and half the check-in we talked about his son's cross-country meet. He just started cross-country, and so I got to learn about how his son did, and they're going to run a 5K together next weekend, him and his son. So I just love to learn about that as well. On the mindset piece, I think I said it's intuition based, but I do have one thing that I found works well. I will caveat a lot of this, with I'm about to take a mindset coaching cert this fall, just to kind of have like a little bit more, evidence-based work here. A lot of the stuff I do is like intuition or my own research, so it'll be nice to have a certification. So I'm not trying to say I'm some like mindset wizard or something, but one of the things I found works well with people when it comes to holding them accountable, I like to frame it as like, okay, this is what we've talked about you want, and like this is what we decided together that we needed to do to get there, and like we're not doing that. So I'm not coming at you from a place of like shame or telling you like you need to do this, but like I'm just holding you accountable to what you've said you want to do. And if you don't think this still like serves you and fits, then that's fine. We can change it. But I want to call it out because you said you want to do this. And so we either change it or we figure out what the barriers are. And it's really up to you. Again, I turn it back to them. It's up to you what we do here. This is your life, your goals. What I want doesn't matter. I'm just here to support you. And that goes back to my goal setting, right? I never tell a client what to do. You're probably aware. I ask them what they want to do because it doesn't matter what we want, right? I had a coach a couple weeks ago ask me like, hey, how do you get a client to want to do more cardio when they need to for their health? And I'm just like, it's not up to me to get them to want to do it. I can give them all the evidence, but if they don't want to do it, then that's fine. Like, who am I to say that's wrong? It's their life.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the key is like having them take ownership and accountability for what they want, and having them like actually say like, hey, I'm going to commit to doing this thing. Then our job is just to make sure that they follow through with that and hold them accountable. Because like you said, like we're here and we want you to succeed, and we want to help you reach your goals, but they're not my goals or your goals. It's the client's goals. And so they need to take more ownership with that. And that's awesome. It's kind of like motivational interviewing, sort of.
It is, yeah. I've been big on that. I think it's like, people talk about, at least in the kind of performance world, maybe not so much in your world, but I think it does manifest in a different way as well. They talk about, hey, you need to hold people accountable. So like people are getting on people like it's horrible if you miss your workout. Like they're very aggressive at it. Whereas it's just like, hey, we're adults here. If you want this, you have to do this. That's the hard truth. That's where you're difficult. You can't lie to them and say you can get this without, without tracking your food, right? Whatever the goal is, right? So we're adults here. You're an adult. You said you want to do this. This is what you need to do. I'm just calling that out, and now it's up to you. That's the hard point. It's not you need to be more disciplined. You need to do this. You need to, wake up earlier and sleep less. That's just like motivational BS, right? That you see on a YouTube video. Maybe those are some of the tools, but I'm not telling them what to do. Most of the time they're saying like, oh, I could wake up a little earlier actually and do this, or oh, I could like work this out. Like, again, like you said, the power is in their hands.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, it is true. Like, it's like so as with regards to like fat loss, like first, like I help people with their overall metabolic health. So like establishing like baseline habits, like stress management, movement, strength training, nutrition, like the basics. And I explain like, this is why you need to do these things for this particular goal. And if right now you don't want to, that's okay. But we're not going to get there very quickly. And so some people are still like with sleep. Sleep is the hardest thing for people to change. And it's so important. Performance too, like for recovery, to make sure you're able to push in that next training session. And it's such a challenge. And I had one client, he's like, look, this is just not a priority for me. And I'm like, that's okay. But your results will be hampered because that is like so crucial. So yeah, it's, and sometimes it's frustrating because you're like, if you just made this like little small like adjustment here, you could totally do this thing that's gonna like help tremendously. But it's part of coaching is letting go.
Sometimes you just need the life experience too, to appreciate the wisdom, right? You need to kind of fall on your face and be like, oh, what they told me was actually correct. Even though you logically can believe it, sometimes you have to experience the thing. And so as a coach, that does suck sometimes, having to watch somebody just like have to fail in order to learn the lesson. But again, that's a part of coaching. That's why it's coaching and not just giving someone a training plan, right? We're guiding them through the process. Totally
agree. Yeah. And actually, so personally right now, I just signed up for my first powerlifting competition.
Oh, fun.
Yeah. So my coach, like I'm working on performance, and I actually, I didn't do cardio for a while because I was stress case. So I would like overdo it, and it wreaked havoc on my hormones. Because I was under fueling and all this other stressors and things in my life.
Yep.
And so now my workouts are like kind of long, just 4 training days a week. But, it's like an hour to an hour and a half of strength training and then 30 minutes of cardio after the session. And I was like, my training sessions are really long. And he's like, yeah, you're competing in powerlifting. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's fair. So I adjusted my schedule because I'm doing this thing, but usually like I don't train that long. I was training more frequently, which actually wasn't as good for me. So the 4 days a week has been a lot better. But yeah, it's because we're adults. It's like I said, I wanted to do this thing. And he's like, look, you want to do this thing. This is what you have to do to achieve this goal that we're setting. But yeah, it's good to have coaches that put that into perspective. Because there are some coaches where it's like my way or the highway, and they don't like necessarily elaborate on why you need to do these things, based on like they don't put it into your like goal framework either. Like it's like you don't understand the purpose behind it. So anyway, it helps. Even
I was gonna say, even as a new coach, I was surprised. Like before I even knew much about what I was doing or could put words to it, right? I was so surprised. I would have people be like, oh, I love how you explain what we're doing and don't just tell me I have to do this. Or one of my, like, I think my second client, she was like, second paying client, she was like, I can't believe like I told you this and you changed it for me. Like my last coach, would have never done that. He would have told me I had to stick to the plan. And I was just so surprised that that was out there. I was like, if you tell me your schedule doesn't work for this, I'm not going to tell you have to do it anyways. Like, we'll switch, we'll adapt. There's a million ways to skin the cat, right?
Yeah. That's crazy. Yeah, I can't. It's frustrating too because some of those people out there, they charge like crazy amounts, but they don't get people those sustainable results and like actual progress, because it's kind of like the all or nothing sort of mentality. So how do you program for your like performance athletes if they have like other things on their plate?
Yeah, obviously it's very individual, right? That's part of coaching, but I do check-ins, so that's a huge point. I do video check-ins, so instead of live check-ins, because people are busy, I'll have them, do I have my phone here? I'll have them record a video of themselves. You can't see my phone, there we go. Record a video of themselves and send it to me. And then throughout the week, depending on what day their check-in response day is, I'll record a Loom response, which is me sharing my screen and they can see my face. And I'll listen to their video and then respond to it. In that screen recording, though, I have their training up so that, like, if they have questions, we can visually say, all right, like, you're actually traveling this day, so we're going to probably move this here. I'll lay out my thoughts and then normally be like, either this is what we're going to do, or like, what do you think about this? These are the two options we could do. I find those check-ins really help because I get to not only see what they have to say, but they're recording the video, so they go off on tangents about life, their body language, their tone of voice. Again, a lot of those like intangibles versus someone filling out a form. Nothing wrong with forms. I just like this better because it's a little bit more of that relationship for me. And then from there, I do program week to week for people because if I program for 4 weeks, I'm going to have to change every week anyways, probably as life happens. So I program week to week, and then the actual specifics really depend on their goal. Most people are in the kind of hybrid fashion, hybrid training, avoiding getting in the weeds, I guess. I tend to program strength and endurance as similar energy systems, if you're familiar with kind of how energy systems work. So from a recovery perspective, it works really well to put like heavy back squats and sprints either on the same day or in a similar portion of the week. And then some of the lower intensity, longer duration, like a longer run, and maybe a little bit higher volume lifts at a lower intensity at a later part in the week, because you can kind of recover the nervous system and those energy systems from the high energy work while you're doing the lower intensity, higher volume work. Like, for instance, a long run really promotes, obviously there's a recovery demand, but you're getting blood flow to all the muscles, you're getting synovial fluid throughout the joints, and then you can go back 2 days later and back squat pretty heavy again, because you haven't back squatted pretty heavy since the last Monday. You just did your long run on Saturday. Here we are Monday again. So I tend to progress strength and endurance together in a hybrid fashion. What that looks like depends on the goals. If someone wants to run a marathon and just maintain their strength, that's different than someone who wants to run a marathon and do a powerlifting meet in the same month, right? And then that's going to depend on their weaknesses as well. So if someone wants to say they want to run a marathon and do a powerlifting meet in the same month, but their running's really great and their strength isn't, we're going to, especially in the early phase, probably push strength more than endurance, just to make sure that they're going to be where they need to be on like race day and meet day. I've posted about this a few times, but I did have a few clients recently. It was kind of cool to see it happen more than once. They ran their first marathons, and then 2 days and 3 days later, respectively, they set new back squat PRs. So it was neat. I like to use back squats as like a recovery method. I got this from another coach. It's not my idea, but it promotes blood flow, locomotion as lubrication. So you just get them in and do a couple heavy sets of back squats, and that's it. So it wasn't even a true 1RM attempt. It was just go in and hit 2 heavy singles, and then that's it. Call it a day. And they both PR'd their previous 1RMs on those. So
that's awesome. That's crazy. That's cool. I definitely need to dig into that more. I don't know much about hybrid training. So that's why it's kind of been cool that, I'm doing like cardiovascular training while strength training now.
Yeah, you mentioned metabolic health too. And it's something that I love about hybrid training, because what do we know about muscle mass? It's metabolically active tissue, but then you need to do some form of cardio to make that now metabolically active tissue as efficient as possible, build the mitochondria, build the capillaries, all the nerdy things, right? And it goes back to this, like, how do we build the most resilient human? cardiovascularly, the top leading causes of death are a lot of metabolic diseases or related. So make them super metabolically healthy, but then build muscle mass and do things like plyometrics, jumping, sprinting, so that when they become old, they can still move. They are resilient to falls. Their bones are dense. I don't talk about this stuff as much because people are much more interested in the performance gains. But in the background, I'm so passionate about, like, we are making such a resilient human by building their strength and endurance at the same time, and by incorporating like plyometrics, even some agility stuff, right? Training the brain, even. So it's a passion of mine. I just don't market or talk about it as much because, again, people are personally just more interested in, like, I want to run the marathon, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, my demographic is more like I want to look better. So they also don't really care about their metabolic health, but I try to elaborate on it in my coaching, but also, like, I'm realistic. A lot of clients like don't enjoy cardio that come to me, and so I do mostly like just step count.
Right.
Hit this number of steps a day. But I am going to start to talk because I've been seeing great strength gains and body composition gains with this powerlifting training that I'm doing. And I think part of that is due to the cardio component, because I don't need as much recovery time between sets. I'm way stronger, like it's crazy. And I just feel better. Like I have more energy and stuff. And I don't know about you, but I loved cardio. That was part of my health problem stuff. I did way too much of it, not well programmed. And you just feel awesome after like a session.
You do once you have the requisite fitness, but yeah, people starting out, they're always like, people talk about the runner's high. I've never experienced this, and I'm like, yeah, you have to suffer through this a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm really passionate about that. I talk about it, not a lot, but I do talk about, like, the more cardio you do, the healthier you're going to be metabolically, which means the faster your cells can literally clear waste and deliver nutrients to the muscles, which is going to let you recover faster between sets in the gym. And then, for instance, with tactical athletes, when it comes to strength, I'll say, they'll ask me like, hey, how important is a 1RM? Like, I'm never going to do a 1RM in the field. And I'll say, yeah, if your back squat max is 225 pounds and you have to buddy carry someone who's 225 pounds, you're going to hate your life. But if your back squat max is like 350, 400, and you have to buddy carry someone who's 225, it's going to be a lot easier. Obviously, you need to have the cardio and the work capacity then on top of that. But the same thing metabolically. If you get winded going up the stairs, that just kind of sucks. But if you build this huge capacity metabolically, then everything in life is such a lower percentage of your kind of max aerobic capacity that things just become easier. In the summer here in Virginia Beach, it's super hot, right? And nobody likes the heat. But the healthier you are metabolically, the less hard it is to walk on the beach in the heat because you can, breathe, even though you're still as hot as everybody else, right? So yeah, I find even working with clients, just giving little tidbits of what's happening under the hood helps them a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And that's interesting that you say that about the heat, because Utah gets like pretty hot, but I don't really like notice it as much as I used to since like doing these like, I guess, hybrid-esque training style. And like it gets to like 90, 95, sometimes 100. And I go on my mid-afternoon walks, and that's like hottest part of the day. And I don't feel like it's not like super awesome, but it's not like, oh man, I am dying out here. Whereas like my husband, don't want to talk trash about him or anything, but for him, he's been having health issues. So we're going to integrate more cardio in because I've been telling him the benefits and he's noticed it for me as well. But it's like a lot more challenging on him to go on a walk like mid-afternoon, like 2:30, 3, because he doesn't have that same cardiovascular endurance. But anyway, that's cool. I didn't know that, but it makes sense in hindsight. So how do you I guess, I mean, probably very hybrid, but how do you like train tactical athletes? Like for the most part, like, are there specific things that you're focusing on? Like, obviously you want them to be able to have endurance and be strong, like you were saying. Like if you can back squat more, then carrying somebody is going to be super easy.
Yeah, it depends on where they're at. So I have two kind of categories of tactical athlete. There's the person training for some selection course, right? They want to go to be a special operator, they want to join a SWAT team, they want to do something like that. And then there's the person on the job, and those are two different categories. Selection courses, things like that, tend to be very work capacity focused and very attrition focused. So you just have to be able to perform, and also perform under intense pressure and uncertainty and things like that. So for those people, we really work on a lot of work capacity stuff. And then I'll even throw in some mental tests every once in a while of just like a gut check workout, like see how they handle it, because those psychological things are also trainable. So putting them in really hard situations. But overall, somebody preparing for selection, they tend to have like some kind of civilian job. It's not like super high stakes normally. So there's a lot of leeway there. We can just basically train them like an athlete and not have to worry as much about performing on the job as well. Then you have on the job requirements, which is the bulk of my tactical athletes right now. And the concern there is if you have so much soreness or fatigue that you then can't perform at work, something like that could be dangerous, right? I have a few police officers that work overnight. They get in like gunfights. They're in foot chases multiple times a week. Like,
wow.
It's just where they live. It's what they do, right? They're getting called for domestic calls, which are notoriously dangerous for law enforcement, like domestic violence and stuff like that. So how do we train these people, but then make sure that they're still able to perform? So recovery is huge. I do a lot of for all of my training, all of my programming, my question is always like, how can I be as effective and efficient in this moment as possible? Like, what could I put in this session? Could it be a strength movement or a run or whatever? And is that going to get me closer to my goal than anything else I could put there? Right? Because there's no junk volume is thrown around a lot. It's really relative to your goals. I tend to use the term because people are familiar with it, but I don't like it as much, because more volume generally will be better, but will it be better than something else? Or will it outweigh the recovery demand of that volume? And so with tactical athletes, it's very much, are we getting as much as we can for the soreness and recovery demand that we're putting on these people? And then also their schedules tend to be very varied. And so a lot of times we'll have to be flexible. I'll put in buffer days, I call them, for them to move workouts around if they need to. Because again, somebody might have some, like a EMT, right, a paramedic. They might have a lot of time one day because they don't have any calls. And then the next day they're back to back to back calls. So they might be able to train, and then another day they can't. So a lot of flexibility. And with those people, it tends to be pulling them back because they always want to do more, right? A lot of them very like type A, very like, oh, I can handle it. Like, I know you can handle it, dude, but it's not the smartest decision here. Like, we need to pull back a little bit. That way you can push harder tomorrow, right? Because I had one guy actually on check-ins last week. He put in his comments in the app that I use to program training that he wanted more quad volume. And then he did his check-in and he was like, hey, I know I said I wanted more quad volume, but the next day I felt that shit. So like, let's not do that. Like, I take that back completely. I was like, I figured you might.
That's awesome. And that totally makes sense. Like, given the population that you tend to train, it does have to be week by week because things can change drastically. That's really cool that you have that level of customization. And like we were talking about earlier on the call, like a coach says, you have to stick to the plan. You really customize it to that individual every week, which is, I'm sure, very much appreciated by your clients.
Yeah, completely. No program's the same. There's similar things, right? There's similar, like I know certain speed workouts train certain energy systems. I have certain speed workouts that I like to do, but yeah, it's completely individual for sure.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And how do you coach nutrition for a lot of your clients?
Yeah, most of them, again, it's like a secondary thing. So I will ask them like to what level they want to do nutrition. Some of the very type A people, they just need information and they'll execute like that, right? I've got, again, those people that I have to like pull back a lot, like they never miss a workout ever. They'll just execute. So I can just give them like, hey, here's like how to calculate macros, and here's information about why carbs are important, and you shouldn't just focus on protein because, carbs are protein sparing and all this stuff. And they'll just run with it and be fine. Other people are more similar to if I was doing nutrition coaching, where it's very collaborative. I have a Google Sheet tracker where we put in macros, or sometimes they don't want to track macros. Then I pull up Precision Nutrition's like visual cues that they use, right? And food journals and food logs and things like that. So again, it depends on, I try to meet them where they're at and what they need and what they want. But most of my nutrition people that are really focused on nutrition, we do the macro tracking in a Google Sheet. They put in their macros and their weight every day. And then again, as their training fluctuates, I change their targets. And, I'm also very big on, even if you go completely off the rails, like log it as best you can, put it in so we can see the fluctuations. And then I'm able to calculate the macros and weight, as it's fluctuating, and also put in any performance things. So like I've got a guy training for a 50K right now, and we're doing some body recomps. And so every Saturday when he does his long runs, we up the carbs considerably because he's doing longer runs. We're actually doing some pre-fatigue strength work on Friday, a long run on Saturday, and a shorter run on Sunday, just to get him some time on his legs. I find that works pretty well for ultra training specifically. And so carbs after the Saturday run and even after the Friday lift are crucial to making sure his performance is good the next day and he feels good the next day. So
totally makes sense. Yeah, I was curious because I'm like, you probably focus a lot on carbs because a lot of type A people, myself, and others have probably tried a lot of like fad diets and, restricted carbs for a while.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, especially for endurance performance, it's just so important, right? Obviously, I'll meet people where they're at, and I'm not going to make people change. But most people are very curious that I work with, and they're open to changing when they ask the question of, what do you think about X or Y diet? But if someone came to me and they were like, I'm doing this diet, I'm probably not going to be able to change their mind in the short term. So I'm going to do the best I can to help them make the best of what they've decided to do until they're like, hey, this isn't working. And I know you said it might not work. It's not working. Can we change it?
That's awesome. Yeah, I do the same thing. If you explain to your client, like we talked about earlier, sometimes they have to fail and like go through the experience to believe you. But it's cool that, you're there so that when they do fail, you're like, yeah, here's what we should do now,
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, that makes sense. And do you do any other, like, obviously, like just in general with the check-in process and when you're talking with your clients, you work on mindset. And you said you're going to go through a course in September?
Yeah, supposed to start in September-ish.
Cool. So are there any other like things that you do specifically to help clients with that sort of mindset, or is it just the process in general just kind of helps?
Yeah, again, it's again, I hate to keep saying it's individual, but like I can give some examples, right? I don't have like a clear-cut process because everybody I work with has such different needs on this front. So it's not like I work with the same like two people that always need the same process, A, B, C, D, E, right? So for example, I think on the very far side of the spectrum, like what you prioritize, you do, like what you care about, you do. That's a fact, right? But how do we help people get in line with their priorities? How do we help people verbalize some of those subconscious things that are going on that might be hindering them, or maybe they just actually want to live this way, but they don't have words for that because they haven't actually thought about it yet. And so I'll do a lot of reflection questions for them, like, hey, your homework this week is to just reflect on these questions and get back to me, right? One of the clients I've worked with for a long time, he started with me for a marathon. It was just, hey, I hurt my knee. I want to run this marathon, first marathon ever. I'm really nervous. I don't know if, I don't know if I'm able to run it. I hurt my knee. So we worked together. We ran the marathon. We did all the things in there of scheduling and fueling for runs and all that stuff. And then even some pain science stuff about like, hey, just because it hurts doesn't mean there's damage. And that's a whole nother topic we could spend probably 2 hours talking about. But after the marathon, I did my check-in. I was like, hey, like, what do we want to do now? We've built all these skills. We built all this stuff. Like, what does success look like for you in the next phase? And he wanted to move more towards a strength, kind of strength goals in just general while he figured life out and things like that. Anyways, long story short, through the process of the check-ins of asking him about his life, about where he felt training fit within his life values now after the marathon and how the marathon supported his life values, just kind of making sure he reflects on these things. He in retrospect, has told me this. It obviously wasn't as clear throughout the check-ins, but he was like, yeah, man, I realized that during marathon training, I was my biggest limiter. And then after the marathon, I realized I was doing that in my life too. He was an engineer, and he was like, I got out of college, I went to this place, and I just stayed here because it was comfortable. And I realized I don't want to do that in my life anymore. So he ended up getting a new job, moving out of the city he moved to for that job. And because of the training we did, he actually was able to, on 3 weeks notice or 4 weeks notice, bike around the entire city and video it as like a memento for his time there, because he moved there for the job. So I helped him. Obviously, I do video things for my business, so I helped him like with some camera stuff and everything. So he was able to video that for himself and then move to the new city, new job. And so it was really cool to see him like take that journey and really tie all the lessons to like, how am I living my life? And then now we even are going through that again. Like, okay, now we're established in the city. Like, what does success look like for you? What do you want to do? You know, he wants to focus more on aesthetic things while continuing to run races. He was kind of actually concerned about it being vain. He was like, I know it's kind of vain, but I just kind of want to like look good, you know, and continue like putting on muscle and continue to do like shorter races. And I was like, dude, that's not vain at all. That's fine, you know. It's completely valid to have that goal. You've done all these other things. Clearly, you're not a vain person, right? You've done all these other things. You've really reflected on your life values. Like, it's totally fine to just say, I want to be muscular and run like 5Ks and 10Ks. Like, that's cool. I told him, if you want to feel less vain about it, we could bring that down to like the deeper human need for like relation, right? You want to look good from a relation perspective, right? So, anyways, kind of a tangent, but there's the typical like lifestyle client that needs the specific like nutrition work when it comes to body composition change. And then there's the other thing of like, all right, we're training, but can we make sure that this is making us happier, more fulfilled? Because I see a lot of people decide they want to do something because it looks cool in the distance, and then they start and they feel trapped in a system of their own making because they feel like, I said I'm going to run this marathon, so I have to do it now, even though I absolutely hate this and I don't think it's worth it. So I just want to make sure that everything we're doing is making people's lives better, making them happier and more fulfilled, either in the moment or through accomplishing the goal in the long term.
That's awesome. That makes sense. And I think like just in general, like if you set a goal like fitness related and you follow through with it, like you were saying with this one particular client, like it cascades into other parts of your life where you reflect on and kind of check in on yourself. And then also just in general, like you start to trust yourself better. And so maybe there's some things that you're not super happy with your life, and you know, you want to make changes and you didn't believe that you could before, but after saying you're going to do something and you do that thing, then you start to trust yourself and you're like, well, you know what, maybe I do move to that new city and get that new job. And yeah, so that's really awesome. And I think fitness is such a catalyst for just overall like life improvement. And it doesn't have to be like performance training. It doesn't have to be like body composition change. It could just be like starting to do something that betters your overall health.
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting learning process for me now, actually, personally. It's so difficult to toe that line between making a decision that this isn't for you anymore or pushing through, because there's power in both of them. What I tell people is you only get to quit on a good day. You only get to decide this isn't for you on a good day, so not on a bad day. You have a great run, then you can decide with that runner's high and everything, right, or whatever. Then you get to decide if this is still for you or not based on the information you've gathered. But in a low point, you don't get to say this isn't for me. You need to take some space from that low point because there is power in pushing through even when it's difficult. I thought of this earlier when you were talking about sleep. I, as a coach and an athlete for a long time, right, I really prioritize sleep because I need to recover. I have a 2-year-old now, and he was going through a sleep regression last week, probably the worst one we've had. I slept like 3 hours one night, right? And I had 5 podcasts to record the next day because I like to batch my personal podcasts. That way I'll do like a month at a time of my personal podcasts and then schedule them out just when I'm solo. And it's easy. My athlete brain is like, God, can I do this? Like, I've barely slept, you know what I mean? But going through and doing it anyways and having them turn out pretty good, it builds that confidence and that capability of like, hey, this wasn't the healthiest choice. I'm not going to like put this on a pedestal of something that should be done because that's obviously the wrong thing to do. But I am more capable than I might think, even in these other ways. Like, yes, sleep is important for recovery, but I can still run and work on a lack of sleep. Doesn't mean you should, but you are capable of more than you think. So in the moment, it's difficult because a lot of people, they tend to either just push through or they tend to pull back, and they tend to overdo either way, right? Again, that's why the relationship is so huge, because I know, we as coaches can know what they need in the moment. Does this person need to pull back a little bit, or do they need some loving push to like, hey, you are more capable than you think?
Yes. And usually there's like the two avatars. There's like the type A, where it's like, you know what, you should probably not train today because that's going to be really hard for you because you always train and you're underslept and you're already a stress case. So why add more stress to your plate? Whereas the client that isn't super consistent, it's like you have a poor night of sleep, probably make it to the gym anyway and do your best. Maybe don't push as hard as you would, but they need to show up because they're not doing that. And so that's, like you said, as a coach, we can kind of, give them the tough love or empathy, depending on what type of client they are.
And I have a lot of compassion for both because I've been both throughout my life. You are multiple people throughout your whole life, and I've been in both places. So, with the tactical clients specifically, one thing I do for them, because for them, a lot of times exercise can be their only stress management tool that they have because their life is so chaotic. So for them, it's like, how do I give you what you need without letting you kill yourself? Like give them just a little enough to feel like, all right, I did something. Because sometimes for tactical athletes, specifically, it's the only thing they can control in their whole day sometimes. So,
Yeah, that makes sense for sure. So on that note, don't want to take up too much more of your time, but this has been a great conversation, and I thank you for being on here. But before we go, I'd like to give you the floor to just leave our audience with something.
Yeah, it's been really fun. I've enjoyed being on here. I've enjoyed talking to you. I think the biggest thing for me right now is action. So I lived a lot of my life thinking that the differentiator between successful people and unsuccessful people was knowledge. And so I read as many books as I could, listened to as many podcasts as I could. Again, nothing wrong with that. But I came to that end of that period of my life with a lot of knowledge at trivia and no real life changes. And so something I've been really big about in my own content is that, like, this is great. You listen to the podcast, you get inspired, but then you cue the next one up and it just goes away, right? And so what action you're going to take, even if it's just one action, you put a reminder in your phone, you put it in your calendar, like now while you're thinking about it, and then you take that action, you implement some of that knowledge, and then you've learned. We're in the information age. We have more information at our fingertips than ever, and obesity is at its highest, and people are unfulfilled. I can't remember who it was. Somebody online said it, not my quote, but that knowledge unimplemented is what causes distress. So you gather all this knowledge, but you don't implement anything, and it's a distressing moment because you feel like you've done a lot of work, but you have no outcomes. So, I've just been really big on taking action, even if it's a small action. Whatever popped in your head, you should probably do that.
I love that. And that's so true. I'm like the ultimate podcast junkie and information like overloader. Like, it's like I'm always like, oh, there's this new thing, like I need to learn about it, and I read a bunch of books and then I forget most of it because I'm reading the next book, but I have all this other stuff that I have to implement still that I haven't, so I like that. That's good. So yeah, if you got something from this episode, take action, put a reminder, do something, make a change, even if it's a small thing. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, we're cool, so it's fun to listen to us chat and stuff, but the whole purpose of this podcast is to help people make changes, get better, improve the quality of their life, be better humans. So be a better human and take action.
Yes, definitely.
And where can our audience find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Justin S. Jones. So yeah, I say it kind of fast sometimes, and for people miss the S. So Justin S. Jones, because Justin Jones was taken. I also, website is assembleperformance.com. Kind of out of date though. I need to update it, which is funny given our technology discussion. So Instagram is probably the best place to reach me. Send me a DM, whatever. Justin at assembleperformance.com if you want to send me an email.
Cool. Yeah, I'll put those in the show notes. And thank you all for listening to this episode. Had a lot of fun recording it. So hopefully you take action. And if you do take action, tag us and share the episode.
Yes, I love to support.
Yes. And please, like, if this resonated with you, or you do know somebody in your life who this would resonate with, like, share it. We just want to help people. And yeah, and if you do want to work with either of us, just hit us up. As I said, the info will be in the show notes, but the purpose of this podcast is to help you guys. So anyway, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.